Two more sentences are being handed down today for members of the Oath Keepers, a far-right extremist group, for their role in the January 6th Capitol attack. One of them is Army veteran Jessica Watkins. She was just sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. Sentencing for the other member, Kenneth Harrelson, is happening this very hour. This all comes one day after the group's founder, Stewart Rhodes, was hit with the most severe sentence yet tied to the Capitol insurrection. With a judge describing him as an ongoing threat to democracy, the unrepentant Rhodes was sentenced to 18 years in prison. CNN's Evan Perez is covering this for us. We also have former federal prosecutor Shan Wu to break down the legal aspects of this. Evan, starting with you, how does this Watkins sentence measure up with what prosecutors were calling for?
Well, the prosecutors were asking for 18 years, but it's very clear that certainly the judge believed that Jessica Watkins told a story that, certainly maybe got a little bit of empathy from the judge because of the fact that, she's struggled through a lot. She identifies as a transgender person and served in the military, described how difficult that was for her, and really, at least in the end, finally said that she believed she now realizes what happened that day was wrong and that she should be punished, and was willing to accept that punishment. The prosecutors were not buying it. They're citing some of her communications, even from jail, where she was making fun of the police officers, saying boo-hoo, and saying that they incited the riot by attacking innocent protesters. Of course, that's not what happened. So, the judge, though, did recognize again that this is a person who has gone through a lot, and really called out her conduct and said, this is somebody who went through all of this personal struggle, and should have shown more empathy to the people who were working in the Capitol that day.
And yet, Shan, Stewart Rhodes, the ringleader of the Oath Keepers, he got 18 years. Prosecutors wanted 25. He didn't actually enter the Capitol on that day, and that's part of the argument that his lawyers were making. These other two that are being sentenced today, including Jessica Watkins, she did enter the Capitol.
Right, and I think this judge, Mehta, is really showing himself to be a very discerning and compassionate judge. Right. I think the federal judges often don't have as much experience sentencing people who have committed violent crimes, and he's really taking a careful look at these circumstances to distinguish. Now, I was a little bit surprised. I thought Rhodes' sentence was a little bit light, given that the prosecutors were asking for the 25 years, and given Mehta's very stern rebuke to Rhodes, saying you're still a danger and such. A lot of times with violent criminals, part of the point of a long sentence is having them age out so they're less violent when they get out. But with Rhodes, he's really a leader. It's not that he's personally violent. He's inspiring, he's talking and such, and that's the danger. And I think the judge appropriately is recognizing the distinction between that kind of a leader, mastermind of these things versus the people who were still more the foot soldiers in varying degrees.
But it's clear, though, the judge points out that, Watkins was not just a foot soldier. She was definitely a leader of this Ohio group of Oath Keepers. And, she was using encrypted communications. She was giving instructions on how to get rid of evidence. Again, very proud of what she was doing that day. Perhaps now she realizes what she did.
And Shan, you mentioned that part of the judge's intent is to keep these folks behind bars for long enough so that they're not threats when they come out. Part of it also has to do with deterrence, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably for the deterrence, hopefully some people who are kind of taken up with this kind of notion and thinking, they're seeing this and realizing that it's not just like a cosplay fantasy that they can do these things and there's no accountability for it. And that is certainly one of the important points here, is that even though this charge hasn't been used very often, we haven't seen this, thankfully, very often, it's sending a message out that this is real. People take this seriously. People were hurt.
Yeah, I mean, look, but one of the things that I think is denting that, the whole idea of trying to prevent other people from doing this, is the fact that you have presidential candidates who are out there saying publicly that they're planning to pardon some of these people because they don't view January 6th in the same way.
And how do you take that message, Shan, that former President Trump is speaking of people like Stewart Rhodes as if they're political prisoners, as if he's some kind of martyr?
Yeah, I think that's very damaging to the country. It does hurt the sort of disincentives to people, because the people most prone to falling into this are the very people that folks like Trump is speaking to, and that's definitely problematic.